Hey guys, welcome back. This is the fourth session of Max Weber, and if you have not watched the first three sessions, I would request you to do so. Links for the same would be in the description of this video. And this session will be dealing with post-Weberian developments. This is a part of your UPSC syllabus, and it basically deals with everything that happened after Weber. So we'll see today what all happened after Weber. So before moving to post-Weberian developments, I would like to touch upon a very small topic which I had deliberately left off in previous sessions, which is nothing but emergence of bureaucracy. What were the reasons that bureaucracy emerged? Now to appreciate this topic, we needed to understand what basically bureaucracy is, what basically the model of bureaucracy is as given by Weber. So we have studied all of those in our previous sessions. So in this session, before moving to post-Weberian developments, we will be dealing with emergence of bureaucracy. There are certain reasons, very few reasons. We'll look upon those reasons. So according to Weber, the rise of bureaucracy has been because of the first reason is capitalism. Now capitalism is a type of economic system which is based on the idea of private investment and profit. It prefers stability in the environment. As I have already told you in my first session of Max Weber, in capitalism there is minimum interference from the state. State does not intervene or interferes too much in the market economics. So that is nothing but capitalism. So it is basically based on the idea of private investment and profit. And bureaucracy, which is based on impersonal law, we have seen impersonality being one of the core features of ideal type bureaucracy as given by Weber, right? So bureaucracy which is based on impersonal law, this provides stable and predictive environment, and this is why capitalism gave rise to bureaucracy, because both of them preferred stability and the capitalist economic system gave a proper kind of environment to bureaucracy to grow. The second reason for emergence of bureaucracy is Protestant work ethic. We have already dealt with this in our first session of Max Weber. I request you to go back and watch that if you have not watched that already, or if you have forgotten. We have dealt with this fact that how Max Weber said capitalism rose because of Protestantism. Protestantism being one of the sects of Christianity. So Protestantism gave rise to capitalism, which in turn gave rise to bureaucracy. And while discussing that, I have already told you what Protestant work ethic is. It meant working to the fullest possible capacity of an individual, whether entrepreneur or worker, and not just acquisitive greed or single-minded pursuit of pecuniary gain. So people of Protestant Christianity believed that hard work would only do away with their sins and do away with their guilt, so they worked really hard. This is what is meant by Protestant work ethic. We have already discussed that this new ethos helped modernization of the economy, because they now rejected miracles and turned towards science. It now helped modernization. This new ethos helped modernization of the economy, growth of production and increase in productivity. All of this happened because of Protestant work ethic. Protestantism and its work ethic engendered a social psychology supportive of rational planning, personal discipline, technology and bureaucratic organization. So basically Protestantism and Protestant work ethic gave rise to all of these things. Rational planning, it gave rise to rational planning, it gave rise to personal discipline, it gave rise to technology and technological inventions and technological booms, and it also gave rise to bureaucratic organization. So this is the second reason that Weber says is because of which bureaucracy rose. The third reason is industrialization. Organizations became big in size and large in operation. They could no longer be managed in an unprofessional and unscientific manner. That is why it was needed to shape the bureaucracy in a professional manner. That is why Weber gave an ideal type model of bureaucracy, to shape the bureaucracy in a professional manner, in a scientific manner. They required a scientific approach. This provided a basis for the rise of bureaucracy. So moving on, our next reason for rise of bureaucracies are democracy and money economy. So what is democracy? Democracy basically promotes impartiality, equality and welfare commitment. As we already know, democracy basically means power in the hands of people. We elect our own representatives, we elect our politicians, that is power in our own hands. This is nothing but democracy. So what democracy does is it promotes impartiality, it promotes equality and it also promotes welfare commitment. Democracy is only possible when the law is impersonal in nature. That is, there is no discrimination. If there is discrimination, if there is personality involved, then democracy is not possible. Democracy is only possible when the law is impersonal in nature, when there is no discrimination among all the citizens. Bureaucracy works within the framework of impersonal law. Hence bureaucracy grew with democracy, because democracy is based on impersonality and bureaucracy works within the framework of impersonality. Hence bureaucracy grew with democracy. I hope you understand now. Democracy promotes welfare of people, but this cannot be provided without the requisite expertise or professionalism. This expertise and scientific approach can be provided by bureaucracy. As we already know, democracy basically promotes welfare commitment. The welfare of people are being taken care by the state government or the national government. This is one of the parts of democracy, welfare commitment. And if you need welfare programs to succeed, if you need welfare policies to succeed, you need bureaucracy for that. Proper implementation of welfare policies and programs need bureaucracy. So this is why democracy is also a reason for the rise of bureaucracy. Another reason that Weber gave is money economy. What is money economy? It is basically something that replaced barter system. There was an old barter system, if you remember. So as time progressed, money was invented, currencies came out. So this is what is nothing but money economy, something that replaced barter system. We have currencies and money to exchange items. So money economy provided a basis for the mode of exchange. The prices of the goods and services were fixed. This is what is money economy. Bureaucracy is a hierarchic organization with a sphere of competence. That is, every position has a defined responsibility and authority. We have learned about what sphere of competence, right? So every position has a sphere of competence around it. Every position has a particular responsibility and authority with it. This is nothing but sphere of competence. This is one of the basic features of bureaucracy. This is what we learned in Weber's ideal type model. Sphere of competence and hierarchy, these are nothing but basic features of bureaucracy. So bureaucracy being hierarchic in nature, responsibility and authority within the organization is unequally distributed. So one of the basic features of being hierarchic in nature is responsibility and authority gets unequally distributed. Someone will have more power and responsibility and someone will have less power and responsibility. Basically the people in the upper echelons of organization have more powers and responsibility with them. People in the lower echelons of the organization have less powers and responsibilities with them. This is one of the basic features of being hierarchic in nature. Power and authority and responsibility do not get equally distributed. This is the basic feature of being hierarchic in nature. Thereby different remuneration is given to persons performing different types of responsibilities. So because you have more responsibilities, you will get paid more. You have less responsibilities, you will get paid less. So different remuneration means payments or salary. So different remuneration is given to persons performing different types of responsibilities. This required different remuneration required standardization of remuneration in the mode of payment, and this standardization is only possible in case of a money economy. So because bureaucracy is hierarchical in nature, it now requires standardization of payments, standardization of remuneration, and this standardization is possible only in a case of money economy. Thus money economy provided a basis for the rise of bureaucracy. This is how money economy is the reason of emergence of bureaucracy. Another very simple reasons are growth of rationalism. We have discussed this numerous times in our previous sessions, so we basically know what rationality means. And we also know that Weber's model is known to be a rational model. So with growth of rationalism, the rational model of Weber also found a reason to rise. So the rationalism is also a reason for emergence of bureaucracy. Growth of population is also a reason because there were now more people to administer. So it required specialization, it required more sophistication in handling of matters, right? So growth of population is another reason for emergence of bureaucracy. Other reason is development of modern means of communication. So as technology got advanced, the means of communication also get advanced. So with modern means of communication, we now had more resources at our disposal, and problems of people were now more effectively brought up to the authorities. So basically authorities became aware of problems of people because of modern means of communication, and this is what required sophistication in the operation of bureaucracy, and this is what is the reason for emergence of bureaucracy, modern means of communication. So basically these are the reasons of emergence of bureaucracy as Weber has said. So we'll now move on to our main topic of today, which is nothing but post-Weberian developments. So we have divided this into two parts. First we'll deal with post-Weberian views, and then we'll deal with post-Weberian structures. Now both views and structures are developments which had happened post-Weber, so these are nothing but post-Weberian developments. So first we'll see what views came up after Max Weber gave his theory of bureaucracy. So first view is humanistic view. Now we have already seen this in our criticism of Max Weber, that Weber's model did not deal with human side of the organization. It neglected the human emotions, it neglected the human values. So first view that came up after Weber was obviously humanistic view. They said that model of bureaucracy cannot exist without dealing with human emotions and human values. So what humanistic view is, that humanistic theorists rejected the mechanistic and rigid view of administration or management. This is what Weber's model is. It is a mechanistic and rigid view. It neglects human emotions. They argued in favor of a more social psychological view of the organization. So a view of the organization which is more in tune with society, which is more connected with society. So these theorists of humanistic view argued for a more social psychological view of the organization. The second view that came up was public choice approach. We have already dealt with this. There is a session in module 1 on public choice approach. Please watch that if you have forgotten about it. There were some concepts like methodological individualism and institutional institutional pluralism, we have dealt with this already. This is another view that came up post Weber. Another view that came up post Weber is critical theory. We have dealt with this also. We have dealt with everything that I have written down here. We have dealt with Jürgen Habermas also. This is all available in my session of critical theory of module 1. Please go back and watch that. Also, as you have already seen in our criticism session, Klaus Offe was also one of the critical theorists, so please remember that too. So critical theory was another view that came up post Weber. Another view that came up post Weber was paradigm of governance or the new public service approach. We have dealt with this also in our previous session of module 1. So basically what we have done is we have dealt with all of these post Weberian views in our module 1. There are some more views later on, we'll deal with that, but these views, public choice approach, critical theory and new public service approach, we have dealt with this in our previous sessions. Please watch those respective sessions for more information on these. Next view is that came up post Weber is normative concerns or discretionist view. This is also referred to as value laden approach. The Weberian developments, as we know, are primarily instrumental in nature because it emphasizes on the use of tools and techniques with an emphasis on efficiency and economy. So we know this, that Weber's model dealt more with efficiency and economy in bureaucracy, but on the other hand, if we take into account developments like new public administration (NPA) or new public service approach or digital era governance, all of these concepts emphasize on a value laden approach. There is a certain value attached to them. We know of this, right? New public administration, new public service approach, all of them say that there should be a certain value attached to our administration. It should be more connected to the society, it should be more connected to the human side of the organization, so there should be some value attached to the administration that we administer. So all of these approaches like NPA, new public service approach or digital era governance, these are nothing but normative concerns or discretionist view because they emphasize on a value laden or a welfare oriented approach. So these all together fall under the normative concern or the discretionist view. The next view that came up was Marxist interpretation of bureaucracy. Now again, I have already dealt with what Karl Marx said about bureaucracy in my first part of Max Weber's video, so please go back and watch first part of Max Weber's video to understand what Max Weber said about bureaucracy. He basically called bureaucracy as parasites, if you remember, and he also said that bureaucracy is an apparatus of state operation or state domination. Basically an elite class dominates over the lower class. This is what bureaucracy was for Karl Marx. We have already dealt with this. The next view that came up was phenomenological analysis. Now what this means is basically you analyze certain phenomena. Now this type of model or this type of analysis is different from all of the analysis that we have learned till now, like humanistic view or mechanistic view or whatever other view. It is different from all of that because phenomenological analysis basically analyzes different phenomena or different situations, and we give a conclusion based on this analysis of different phenomena. So phenomenological analysis can be considered as a part of humanistic approach because obviously phenomena or situations happen with humans, right? So it can be considered as a part of humanistic approach. As an approach, it rejects the Weberian view, considering that under the Weberian administration every act is considered as a part of the complete act, while on the other hand every act within the organization is an act in progress. So what these people say is Weber had said every act is a part of a complete act, but basically this is not true, and every act is an act in progress. You cannot consider any act as a complete act. Each and every act, each and every function, each and every phenomena, each and every situation in an organization is an act in progress. It cannot be a complete act, so no act can be considered as a part of complete act. So every act within an organization is an act in progress. This is what phenomenological analysts say. Every act is constructed or reconstructed through the perception of the individual or individual undertaking the action. So basically every person in an organization has a different perception to things. He will look at things differently. No two people can see the same situation in a similar manner. For one person, a particular phenomenon or a particular situation might be good. For another person, the same situation might be perceived as being bad. So every individual in an organization who is undertaking an act, who is doing some function, every individual, every person in an organization will see different situations and will perceive different situations differently. So there are different perceptions of individuals, and based on these perceptions every individual reconstructs their act. As you can see, every act is constructed or reconstructed based on their own perception. So every person has their own perception. Based on this they act, based on this they function. So this is nothing but the post-Weberian view of phenomenological analysis. I hope this is clear to you. So moving on with our next view, It is the situational or the contingency theory. Now contingency theory you will learn again in theories of organization. What this basically means is everything that happens in an organization is contingent upon some factors. Contingency basically means dependency. So everything that is happening in an organization is dependent on some factors. This is nothing but contingency theory. Contingency theory claims that there is no best way to organize a corporation. Weber gave his ideal type model, and these people say that there is no best way to organize a corporation. So there can never be an ideal type model. Such a model does not exist. These people say that. Contingency theory claims that there is no best way to organize corporation, to lead a company, or to make decisions. There is no best way. So there is actually no ideal type model. Instead, the optimal course of action is contingent or dependent upon the internal and external factors such as size, technology, environment, goals, values. So there are various factors. There are numerous factors that any course of action in an organization depends upon. Everything that happens in an organization depends on some of the other factors. So there can never be one best way. There can never be one ideal model of organizing a bureaucracy. This is what nothing but contingency theory. Basically everything that happens inside an organization is contingent or dependent upon some of the factors. You will learn about this again in theories of organization. Contingency theory is one of the theories of organization. The next view was postmodern administration. Now we have dealt with this also in my previous sessions. If you remember, there was something called as positivist approach. What was positivism? Too much of adherence to science, scientific rules, scientific conclusions, scientifically arrived results. So this was positivism, and positivist era is same as modern era. Modernism and positivism is nothing but same. Too much of adherence on science, too much of adherence on reason, too much of adherence on rationality. So this is nothing but positivism or modernism. What came after positivism or modernism is nothing but postmodernism, and this is a recent phenomenon. This happened only after 1950s or so, and it is not a well developed theory. Postmodernism is not something which is already fully developed. It is just something that people say to each other. They basically reject the scientific ideas. In today's times, postmodern thinkers say that what has science given us? It has given us so many wars, it has given us so much destruction, it has given us so much poverty. So basically they reject all of the scientific inventions and scientific reasoning, and they say that science should not be the basis of making decisions. So this is nothing but postmodernism in short. So it is antithesis of positivism. I have already told you what positivism means. It is antithesis of positivism and the logic of objective social science. So it goes against everything. It goes against positivism, it goes against logic of objective social science, it is against to scientific reasoning. Modernism, they say, postmodern thinkers say that modernism is the pursuit of knowledge through reason, and knowledge thus derived is simply assumed to be factual and therefore true. Because you say that there is reason, there is science involved, you just assume it to be factual and therefore you assume it to be true, but it is not the case. Postmodernists describe modern life as hyper-reality, a blurring of the real and the unreal. Life is not so simple, everything is not so black and white, there are shades of grey. So basically life is a hyper-reality, it is a blurred event, it is a blurring of the real and the unreal. You cannot just say something based on science is truly factual or truly acceptable. Life as we live it is not such black and white, there is nothing concrete, it is a blurring of real and the unreal. So to postmodernists, modern public administration based on enlightenment logic is simply misguided. As we already know, enlightenment was that period of history where people rejected miracles, they gave up the hope of God and they turned to science. So as you can see, there is a particular chain that is happening. Initially too much of things happened based on just religion. People devoted their reasoning to God. They said that it is an act of God, something bad happened that God has done it, something good happened that God has done it. So everything was based on religion, everything was related to God. This was the earlier era, and after that came the enlightenment era where people started reasoning things, where people started turning towards science. This is nothing but positivism. Enlightenment era is nothing but positivist era or the modernism era or the modernist era, and after that came postmodern era, which is nothing but against all of these ideas. So as you can see, there is a particular chain that is happening. So to postmodernists, modern public administration based on enlightenment logic is simply misguided. Postmodern public administration theories are particularly critical of the field's apparent preoccupation with rationalism. They are against rationality, they are against rationalism. There should be no rationalism, there should be no science, there should be no reason. Especially market based rational choice theory. What is market based rational choice theory? Making rational decision based on profit motive. So if you are making profit, if you are gaining something, that is a rational decision. This is what is market based rational choice theory, and postmodernists say that this is completely fake, this does not actually exist. There should not be anything which is known as market based rational choice theory. They are basically against rationality as a whole, and especially they are against market based rational choice theory, and also they are against technocratic expertise. In contrast, they have a central commitment to the idea of discourse. What is discourse? It is debate, it is discussion, something that happens between two or more people. That is discourse. So they say that there should not be predefined rules, there should not be scientific rules and principles that guide our way of living. There should be a discourse. The central commitment to the idea of discourse was what postmodernists believed in. The notion that public problems are more likely resolved through discourse than through objective measurements or rational analysis. So basically, you should discuss more, you should debate more, you should discourse more. This is how problems will be resolved, and not by some scientific rules, not by some elements of ideal type bureaucracy. The problems can be resolved not by some scientific management of F.W. Taylor or Henry Fayol. These people cannot resolve the problems of your life. Only discourse or discussion can resolve the problems of your life, and not science, and not reason, and not rationality. This is nothing but postmodern administration. I hope this is clear now. Postmodern administration is one of the post-Weberian views which came up after post-Weber. So we are basically done with the post-Weberian views. We will now deal with some post-Weberian structures, some structure that came up after Weber gave his structure of ideal type bureaucracy. Some other people suggested some other structures, so we will deal with this. So first structure that we will deal with is Theory Z or Japanese management style. Now if you are wondering why is it called Theory Z, for that you need to study Douglas MacGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. So there is something known as Theory X and Theory Y given by Douglas MacGregor. We will learn about that, it is a part of our module. You do not need to worry about Theory X and Theory Y now. Just remember why it is called Theory Z, because there was some Theory X and Theory Y given by Douglas MacGregor. So in relation to that, this new theory is known as Theory Z, and this came up in Japan. So it is also known as Japanese management style. We'll see what it means now. This has been developed by an American theorist with Japanese origin, and his name was William Auchi. So post World War II, Japanese organizations came up and were able to successfully compete with American organizations. As we have learnt in our world history, at the end of World War II, Japan was devastated, it was destructed. It actually lost the war, and also on the front of its national property, it was destructed by use of nuclear weapons. But still, post World War II, Japanese organizations came up, and these organizations that came up were able to successfully compete with American organizations. This resulted into a concern and anxiety to understand the nature of these organizations. A number of studies took place, and one of them was by Auchi. Reminiscent in the name of MacGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, as I have already told you, Theory Z is named because something known as Theory X and Theory Y were already prevalent, and it is in reminiscence to that. While Theory Z in some ways is an extension of Theory X and Theory Y, you can say that Theory X and Theory Y are being extended by Theory Z, but there is one principal distinguishing difference between those two, and these are Theory X and Theory Y focus on the personal leadership styles of individual supervisors. So you will learn this when you learn Theory X and Theory Y. Do not worry about this now, but for now just understand that Theory X and Theory Y focus on personal leadership styles. They say that how a leader should be personally, so they focus more on personal leadership styles of individual supervisors. And Theory Z on the other hand focuses on the culture of the entire organization and not personal leadership styles. It focuses on the culture of an entire organization. So this is why, while you can say that Theory Z is an extension of Theory X and Theory Y, it is fundamentally different from them, because it basically focuses on the entire organization and not on personal leadership of individual supervisors. Unlike Theory X and Theory Y, which both concern themselves with behavior of individuals, we have already seen this. Theory Z is concerned with the difference the organizational culture makes in the way the whole organization is managed. So how an organizational culture makes the difference in the management of the organization, this is what Theory Z is concerned with. Auchi found out that the American organizations recruit individuals to the managerial positions at the middle level of organization. So there are various levels in an organization: lower level, middle level, uppermost level. So whatever managers were being recruited in American organizations, they were being recruited in the middle level of the organization. There were no managers at the lower level. Managers were only when you have reached some level, when you have reached a middle level, so to say. And because of this, most of the performing functionaries reach to the top during their middle age. Now because you are hiring managers at the middle level of the organization, which is somewhat above a few levels or many levels, middle level are above some levels, right? So whoever reached those middle levels were basically of middle age, of 50 or 40 or 60 years. So these were the managers who were old, who were in their middle age, because you were hiring them at the middle level, and those middle levels were at some height from the lower levels, right? So basically people who reached these middle levels were of middle age themselves. After that, the promotional aspects become bleak for such functionaries because they get settled in their ages and they get settled in their positions. So for them, promotional aspects become very, very bleak. So you do not see much promotions happening as you can see in the lower levels of organization. In these organizations, the employment was based on the hire and fire policy. So there was simply hire and fire policy, and this is what organizations worked on. This resulted into a lack of psychological sense of attachment or ownership with the organizations. So basically all of the employees that worked in American organizations were not attached to the organization. This is what Auchi found out, and we can basically see this to be true in our Indian sense also. When you see multinational companies in India, none of the employees are too loyal towards the organization, right? And this is the reason for that. There is no sense of attachment with the company or the organization for the employees. This is what Auchi found out for American organizations. Now when he studied Japanese organizations, he found out something. He found out that recruitment to the managerial positions was for the lower levels of organizations. Unlike in American organizations, Japanese organizations recruited managers at the lower levels. Also, the pay, privileges, promotions, etc. were based on performance. This was also the case with American organizations also, like pay, privileges, promotions, everything was based on performance, right? But Japanese organizations followed the concept of prolonged evaluation and slow promotion. This gave opportunity to every performing functionary to grow throughout his career in the organization. So basically when you are promoting slow, you are providing more opportunity to that person to grow in his organization. This is what Japanese believed in. So they had a concept of prolonged evaluation and slow promotion. This is where they differed from American organizations. The fundamental idea was the same, that based on their performance they will get pay and privileges and promotions, but how these performances were being judged was different. There was a prolonged evaluation and slow promotion. Also, Japanese organizations believed in permanency in employment. This is different from the hire and fire policy. Hire and fire policy does not believe in permanency in employment, right? So Japanese organizations believed in permanency in employment. They did not believe in hire and fire policy. The informal aspects were considered to promote the formal goals of organization. Now what are informal aspects? We have dealt with this shortly, very briefly in one of the previous sessions. So basically whatever formal organizations are there, they form within themselves some informal organizations. For example, a group of people who are working together might create bonding among themselves. They might form an informal group. This is what is informal group within a formal organization. People who are forming bonding among themselves. So these informal aspects were also considered by Japanese organizations, as opposed to what American organizations did. They just considered the formal goals of the organization. Informal aspects were also considered by the Japanese organizations. Also, extra organizational activities were used to reinforce the organizational activities. Not just strict adherence to rules and principles, some extra organizational activities were also used. For example, to relax the employees, recreational activities and other such stuff. So such extra organizational activities are also used to reinforce the organizational activities. A work environment that produces high employment commitment, motivation and productivity. This is what Auchi found out when he studied Japanese organizations, that there was a work environment in those organizations that produced high employee commitment. Employees were committed. As we have seen in a previous point, in American organizations there was lack of sense of attachment with the organization, right? So in Japanese organization there was a high employee commitment, there was high motivation, and there was also high productivity. For example, Auchi learned that many Japanese employees are guaranteed a position with their employer for life, thereby increasing the employees' loyalty to their company. So if you are more permanent in your job, that is how you become more loyal to the company. So this is what Japanese organizations also believed in, and in certain cases Auchi even found out that employees were hired for their entire life, and this is why they became more loyal as opposed to American organizations. There was a certain concept which is known as Ringi system. As we have already seen, managers were hired at lower levels of organizations, right? So every problem went through all the levels of managers. So the lowest level of manager will come up with some solutions, and they will give these solutions to their superior level of managers, and now these upper level of managers will consider the solutions given by the lower level of managers. They will discuss among themselves again, and they will come up with a new set of or the same set of solutions, and they will again give up to the higher level. This is known as Ringi system in Japanese organization. It is a participative approach. So managers at every every levels are being participated in decision making. This is nothing but theory Z or Japanese management style. I hope clear to you. It is opposed to American organizations who handled things very differently, who considered hire and fire policy, who considered only the formal aspects of organization, and who hired managers at the middle level of the organization, and also in which employees were not attached to the organizations. Japanese organizations had a different sense of view, and this is nothing but Japanese management style or theory Z. So I hope theory Z is clear to you. This is the first post-Weberian structure that we have studied. So moving on now. There is something known as from bureaucracy to post-bureaucracy. Post-bureaucracy is a term which is basically a post-Weberian phenomenon only. So there was a era which is known as bureaucracy era, which is nothing but the era in which Max Weber gave us his ideal type model. So we have reached from an era of bureaucracy to an era of post-bureaucracy. We'll see how. There is an elegant shift from industrial to post-industrial society since the 1970s. So basically industrial revolution has advanced so much in today's times that there is no industrial society left at all. So whatever society has developed since 1970s, we call that society as post-industrial society. So there was a shift from industrial to post-industrial society, shift from mass production of standard products to niche products. And we see this happening in today's times also, like standard products are not mass produced. Niche products or different products or products that are not similar to the ones already existing in the market, such niche products are now developed on mass scale, and there is a general avoidance of the production of the standard products, the similar kind of products. This is a change that we are seeing happening in our today's times, in today's society. Employee demand for flexibility and autonomy. This demand was put forward by employees in our post-industrial society. In our today's times, employees demand more flexibility and autonomy. This is the change that we are seeing. Elegant development of a new organizational form, which is nothing but the post-bureaucracy. So this new organizational form is called as post-bureaucracy. So we have basically reached an era of post-bureaucracy from an era of bureaucracy of Max Weber. So we'll see what this era of post-bureaucracy means. Bureaucratic model, as we know, was based on rules, hierarchy, impersonality and division of labor. These are all the features of bureaucratic model. We have learned about them. However, it suffers from some problems. We have learned about these problems also in our criticism part. And what are these problems? Poor employee motivation, producer focus only, not the client or the citizen focus, just the producer focus, and there is a certain kind of inertia. A static feeling is there. The bureaucracy is not dynamic enough. It does not change with changing times. So there is a certain kind of inertia. So these are some of the problems that the bureaucratic model suffers with. So in view of this, post-bureaucracy has been proposed as a new organizational model more suited to today's business environment. These post-bureaucratic organizations or PBO, these post-bureaucratic organizations are based on trust, empowerment, personal treatment and shared responsibility. As we know, these were not the features of Weber's bureaucratic model, right? He did not empower people. He did not rely on personal treatment. His model was more of a hierarchic in nature and more of a mechanistic in nature. There was a lesser touch on the human side of the organization. So he did not deal with personal treatment. He did not deal with trust, and he did not deal with shared responsibility. So these are the features of post-bureaucratic organizations or the new organizational forms that have developed after the era of bureaucracy. Such post-bureaucratic organizations give more focus on decentralization instead of centralization and hierarchy and top-down model. More focus is on decentralization, but this brings its own problems in terms of loss of control, risk and unfairness. So basically when you are decentralizing, you are losing control. So this is a problem of post-bureaucratic organization. And some other problems are there is too much of risk involved and too much of unfairness involved because there is less adherence to predefined rules and principles. So basically unfairness also comes into play. When there are predefined rules and principles of Weber's model, everything is fair because everything happens to some well set down and well laid down rules, right? So there is a kind of unfairness in post-bureaucratic organizations. There is a kind of loss of control and a risk involved. Post-bureaucratic organizations may be unstable since more worker autonomy may lead to confusion. Because you are giving more autonomy to workers, this may lead to confusion. And as one of the famous thinkers, Wilmot, has said, autonomy is slavery, bureaucracy is freedom. Now this statement is so opposing, right? Autonomy is slavery. When you are saying autonomy, you do not mean slavery, you mean freedom, right? But what Wilmot says is, in case of post-bureaucratic organizations, autonomy basically means slavery and bureaucracy basically means freedom. He basically is on the side of Max Weber's model of bureaucracy. He says that bureaucracy is freedom, and when you give autonomy in post-bureaucratic structures, that is nothing but slavery. He says how it is possible is jealousy and rivalry may arise amongst employees, because now you are giving so much autonomy to employees. Employees may develop jealousy and rivalry amongst them, and groups will be concerned about their own productivity rather than moving towards the corporate goal. There are some organizational goals, right? There are some goals or objectives that a particular organization has to achieve. So when you give more autonomy to people, people basically lose focus from these overall organizational goals. They are more concerned about their own productivity and not the productivity of the organization as a whole. Issue of inequality may arise if views of a certain person or group are given more importance than others, leading to conflicts and deviation from corporate mission. So basically all of these things happen because you are giving autonomy to employees in a post bureaucratic organization, right? So more autonomy is basically slavery, because there is more jealousy, because there are more conflicts now, because there are more rivalry among employees, and there is a displacement of goals happening. So basically autonomy is slavery and bureaucracy is freedom. This is what Wilmot says. This is a criticism of post bureaucratic structure as given by Wilmot. So I hope this is clear to you that we have moved from an era of bureaucracy, the Weberian era, to a post bureaucracy era, and these are the features of post bureaucratic organizations. So we'll see some of the structures of post bureaucratic organizations. These are some of the post bureaucratic organizations. Okay, first structure that we will see is functional or task structure. In this type of structure, employees perform a specialized set of tasks. For example, an engineering department is set up which would be staffed only with software engineers. So what this department will do is it will perform a specialized task of engineering only, and specifically software engineering. So this kind of structures have come up post bureaucracy, which perform a specialized set of tasks, and this leads to operational efficiencies within that group. Because it is a group of just software engineers, it will be more efficient in achieving its goal, right? So this kind of structure has developed post bureaucracy. This is a post bureaucracy structure. It also leads to a lack of communication between the functional groups within an organization, making the organization slow and inflexible. So now there are different groups for different tasks. There is an engineering group, there is an accounting group, there is a different other sales group. So there is a lack of communication between these groups, because all of these groups are self-contained. They do not need much of the another group for their own execution of task, right? So there is a certain lack of communication in these post-Weberian functional or task structures of organization, and this is what makes the organization slow and inflexible. These types of functional or task structures are best suited as a producer of standardized goods and services at large volume and low cost. So if you have a large volume of things to produce, you can set up a task structure. So it is best suited for something which has to be produced on a large scale and which obviously needs lower cost of production. So you can set up a functional structure or task structure for that. Coordination and specialization of tasks are centralized in a functional structure, which makes producing a limited amount of products or services efficient and predictable. So because it is a specialized set of tasks that a structure is functioning, there is more coordination within such structure, right? So there is more coordination and there is more specialization of tasks, and this is what makes their services more efficient and more predictable. Integrate their activities vertically so that products are sold and distributed quickly and at low cost. For instance, a small business could make components used in production of its products instead of buying them. So one of the advantages of such structure is that you can even vertically integrate them. For example, if you are making a product and if you are buying components to make that product, what you can do is you can set up some special functional or task structure to make those components also. So what you have done is you have vertically integrated the organization. Now you do not need to buy those components also anymore. So vertical integration is one of the advantages of functional or task structure. Next kind of structure that we'll learn about is divisional or product structure. This consists of self-contained divisions. It is a collection of functions which produce a product. Examples of these divisions include regional divisions, for example a US division or a EU division. So these are regional divisions in an organization. There might be a India division in some of the American organizations. This is a kind of divisional structure. Another kind of division might be consumer type division, a division for companies and one for households. These are consumer type divisions. A particular group of people, a particular organization taking care of only household things. So these are a consumer type of division. Another type of division that might happen is a product type of division. In this, for an example, a division of trucks, or another for SUVs and another for cars. So there are different divisions for manufacturing different kind of products ट्रक्स मैन्युफैक्चर करने के लिए अलग डिवीजन होगा, कार के लिए अलग होगा, एसयूवी के लिए अलग होगा. So these are nothing but divisional structures. The earlier what we learned was a task structure. It was based on a particular skill, it was based on particular task, and these are based on particular products that are being manufactured, right? Regional divisions, consumer type divisions, and product type divisions. The divisions may also have their own departments such as marketing, sales, and engineering. These are functional structures. So functional structures can exist within the divisional structure also. For example, a US division or an EU division might have within themselves department of marketing, sales, and engineering. So these are two, functional structure and task structure. Now a third structure that we'll see is mix of both. It is known as matrix structure. In matrix structure, employees operate by both function and product. People with similar skills are pooled for work assignments, resulting in more than one manager. We'll see an example for this and it will become more clear to you. All engineers may be in one engineering department. This is the functional structure, right? All engineers in one engineering department, and these engineers in one engineering department report to an engineering manager. But these same engineers may be assigned to different projects and report to different engineering managers or a project manager while working on that project. So you have a group of people who are engineers and they do some task or some works collectively in that group, and individually these engineers are also assigned to some different products or different projects, and they might report to their different project managers also. So this is a kind of matrix structure which is a mixture of both functional structure and product structure. I hope you understand now. Therefore each engineer may have to work under several managers to get his or her job done. So there are many managers to report to in a matrix structure. Now remember one thing, there is a thinker known as Chris Argyris, and he also gave a matrix organization structure. That matrix organization is different from the post-Weberian matrix structure. When you will study the matrix organization of Chris Argyris, remember this, that it is different from the post-bureaucratic matrix structure. Okay, so remember that. So matrix management is more dynamic than functional management. The functional structure or the task structure is not that dynamic, but matrix management is more dynamic when you compare it with functional structure or functional management. In that it is a combination of all other structures, because it is a combination of both functional product, so it is a combination of all other structures, and it allows team members to share information more readily across task boundaries. We saw that one of the disadvantages of functional structure was there was lack of coordination between different specialized departments of engineering or accounting or other things. But in matrix structure this hurdle is overcome and team members now share more information or information more readily across boundaries. But there are also some disadvantages with matrix structure, and the first and foremost is increase in complexity of the chain of command. This occurs because of the differentiation between functional managers and project managers. As we have already seen, there are various managers to report to for a single employee. So basically a complexity has developed within the chain of command because of so many managers to report to, which can be confusing for employees to understand who is next in the chain of command, who to follow, who to obey. Higher manager to worker ratio. Since there are many managers to report to, this basically results in higher manager to worker ratio. There are more managers than workers now. That results in conflicting loyalties of employees. Basically same thing, it confuses the employees whom to follow and whom to obey. So this is the matrix structure. This is the third type of post-bureaucratic structure that we have seen. First was functional structure, second was divisional structure, and third is matrix structure, a combination of both. Now these all post-bureaucratic structures or the new organizational forms, collectively they have some disadvantages to them collectively, and these are nothing but in these post-bureaucratic structures hierarchy still exists. There is still a chain of command, and as we have seen in our matrix structure, this chain of command even got more complex. So hierarchy still exists. Authority is still Weber's rational legal type, and organization is still rule bound. So we have seen these new types of ways of organizing a department or organizing an organization, but still they suffer with the same problems, that there are still hierarchies, might be even complex. Authority is still the legal type and rational type, everything is rule bound again. So they have not overcome that disadvantages even after coming up with new models. So we'll see some other models given by other thinkers. We'll see two last models now. This is the second last model that we will be studying today, and this is Charles Hexer's consensus based organization. Now Charles Hexer had developed a post-bureaucratic ideal type organization. We have studied Weber's bureaucratic ideal type organization. In opposition to that, Charles Hexer developed a post-bureaucratic ideal type organization. So his consensus based organization is also a post-bureaucratic organization, but it basically overcomes those disadvantages or deficiencies that we talked upon in in our last slide, it overcomes those deficiencies. So this is a post-bureaucratic ideal type organization given by Charles Hexer, in which decisions are based on dialogue and consensus. It is a consensus-based organization. All the problems are resolved by dialogue or discourse rather than authority and command. Organization is a network rather than a hierarchy. There is no hierarchy. It is a network. It is open at the boundaries. This sort of horizontal decision making, there is no vertical chain of command, there is no hierarchy, there is a horizontal decision making. Everyone is equal. Decisions are made on consensus and dialogue. So this sort of horizontal decision making by consensus model is often used in cooperatives, the housing cooperatives for example. Different cooperatives use this. It is also used in NGOs, as you can see, and when running in a non-profit or a community organizations. So basically in NGOs or community organizations or in cooperatives, decisions are taken by consensus, and this is a post-bureaucratic structure that these organizations follow, and this structure was given by Charles Hexer. It is based on consensus and dialogue rather than authority and command. It encourages participation of employees and empowers people who normally experience oppression in groups. So basically there is no oppression of groups now. Basically everyone is equal and everyone takes decisions. So this is very simple consensus based organization. It is a post bureaucratic ideal type organization given by Charles Hexer. The last type of post bureaucratic structure that we will study is post bureaucratic culture. There is this term known as post bureaucratic culture that has caught upon. We will see what post bureaucratic culture is. Culture is not only a thing that is inside people, but also a secret power that directs many behaviors both inside and outside the organization. So your culture, your संस्कृति is not a thing that is only inside people. बाहर भी culture होता है, सिर्फ लोगों के अंदर नहीं होता. It is also outside people. So culture is not only a thing that is inside people, but it also is a secret power that directs many behaviors both inside and outside the organization. So एक organization का भी खुद का culture होता है. In every social situations, individuals work consciously or unconsciously like a leader. You tend to follow your leader. So consciously or unconsciously, you tend to imitate him. You tend to work like a leader, and they not only behave like a part of existing culture, but also generally start forming new cultural elements. So while you are imitating or following your leader, you are not only following your existing culture, you are also forming a new cultural element, which is a mixture of your own culture and your leader's culture. So this is a new element of culture that you are giving rise to. So this is what happens in every social situation. Now bureaucratic structure is something that managers protect their employees that do not make a mistake, and there is only one true way to do the work. So if you are not doing any mistake, till that time only managers will protect you. Managers protect their employees that do not make a mistake, and those who do mistakes, managers do not protect them. This is a bureaucratic structure. This is a culture of Weber's bureaucratic model, and there is only one true way to do the work. This is a bureaucratic culture. What is post bureaucratic culture is, it gives more importance to subordinates' decisions, their choices and their free thoughts by sustaining the soul of reformism and entrepreneurship. So you are basically reforming everything. You are basically giving more free hand to your subordinates. This is nothing but post bureaucratic structure. It gives more importance to subordinates' decisions. Management style moving from bottom to top instead of coming from top to bottom. Now decisions are being made from bottom to top, and this increases trust by minimizing chain of command. So loyalty and compliance by employees also increases. It increases the trust on the part of employees. Every member takes a responsibility for the success of the whole organization, and not only the managers and the chief executives. Every member and every employee has a share, and he takes a responsibility for the success of the whole organization. And this is nothing but post bureaucratic culture. I hope this is clear now. So we are done with our Max Weber session. We are dealt everything that we have to deal with in Max Weber. Now what we'll do is we'll deal with some practice questions. I've included some UPSC and non-UPSC questions also. So we'll discuss some UPSC questions. In 2015 they asked, Weberian model of bureaucracy lacks emotional validity when applied to modern democratic administration, and you have to comment on this for 15 marks. So very simply, you have to criticize bureaucracy's model. You have to give some criticisms for Weberian model of bureaucracy, that it lacks emotional validity, it lacks the human side approach, it does not deal with humanistic emotions and human values. This is all you have to criticize for 15 marks. This is very simple. Now coming to 2012 question, you will see, in the canonization of this abstract idea of Staatsräson are inseparably woven the sure instincts of bureaucracy for the conditions which preserve its own power in the state. This is a statement given by Weber, and you have to explain this. Now this is a German word. Remember, Max Weber was a German guy and he used this German word. It means national interest. Now if you know that this word means national interest in German language, you can answer this question. It becomes very simple. This question basically says that bureaucrats tend to preserve their own power in the name of national interest, कि हम national interest के नाम पे अपनी power preserve करेंगे. This is what the question asks and you have to explain this if you know what Staatsräson means. So as you can see, UPSC can completely surprise you, it can completely shock you, and unless and until you are very sure of the internal meaning of the question, do not try to guess wrongly. You can still try to attempt, but do not try to guess wrongly, because that will obviously fetch you a negative impression on the part of the person who is checking your paper. So as most of you might be thinking by now, this is a clear proof that UPSC is very very unpredictable. You cannot predict what the UPSC will ask in the question. English कम पढ़ रही थी, जो German भी घुसा रहे हैं अभी. So it is very unpredictable on the part of UPSC. So whatever you study is actually less, but still on your part you should try to study as much as possible. But before that, you should be clear with your basic concepts and basic ideas, because unless and until your basic concepts are clear, any kind of new information will not help you. It will just add to your confusions. So enough of talking. You can now practice these questions. I have included some non-UPSC questions also. Try writing them. Overcome your initial hesitation to write, and this will show you where you lack, and this will show you what your weak areas are. So on this note, I would like to thank you all for watching this session. I do not know when my next session would be or what it would be on. I do not know till when I would be able to continue this. It really is very hectic for me to do all the research and record all the sessions and then edit them. But I do hope to continue it. I am not sure till when I will be able to continue it. So please do subscribe to the channel if you do not want to miss any further video that I upload. Also please like, comment and share this video if you like the content that is shared by me. So hope to see you soon in my next session. Peace out.